there a lot of hours.
I don't know.
There wasn't.
I was just curious.
We'll put it this way, when I pulled up the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
I didn't have to scroll. It was like, maybe it just fit in my screen. So.
Before.
Oh, he's calling back. John, are you still having issues?
I haven't gotten it, but I'm just gonna stay on this phone until I get it. So if I can get caught up in my screen, so if that's okay with you, I'll just stay on the phone.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Should be starting here shortly.
Okay, I just wanna be on here for Bell, so did he send it to my?
He sent it to both email addresses. And it should be from Zoom.
Yep, got it.
Okay.
Going through our spam.
He's gonna get it.
I
Oh,
got it.
Are you good? Okay, we'll hang up then.
All right, thank you.
that's where I see poor John.
Technology, God love it.
We should see John here in just a little bit.
Give a couple more minutes here for John to come on.
Andy, you ready to get this party started? Let's go.
We're waiting for John real quick. He's just calling in right now.
Oh,
Oh, there he is.
there he is. He's worried about his
Hey,
stock
John.
price.
All right, we are good to go. 6:01. I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, Gail?
Tyler's absent, but I believe he might be calling in a little bit. Right now, Tyler's absent. Jeff,
Yes.
John,
Here.
Deb,
Here.
and Andrew.
Here.
Okay.
Do we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agenda approved. First thing we have is consideration of sealed bids.
Jim, you want to have Travis?
Travis, you want to jump on and run through that?
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen?
Perfect.
All right, let's see if I can
Travis said he's on and muted.
do this. All right, did that work?
It did.
Okay, great. Well, good news today. We completed the refinancing on the district's 2013 general obligation school bonds. So this goes back to the project after the high school project. So I think this was the part of the sports complex as well as I guess the addition onto the high school. Great results today. You had 6 bidders submit bids. You can see on the ranking on the bid platform here, the true interest rate is the controlling factor. It amounts to an average rate that also accounts for the fee bid by the underwriter. So in this case, you see UMB Bank at a 1.36, Northland a 1.52, Robert W. Baird a 1.56, DA Davidson a 1.598, Raymond James a 1.74, and then BOK a 1.75. So fantastic set of results. I think we had been pegging the financing to be in the 165 range when we started the process. We saw a great bid today from UMB. Clearly some, what I would say, based on the way their bid was submitted, it looked like perhaps some Iowa or regional bank support may be involved in this bid, just given the way that the bid was submitted. It's not consistent with some of the national market stuff that we've seen. So again,
Hey,
the bid,
Travis, I need
Yeah.
to interrupt just a second here. Tyler is on the line. He just is muted. So just wanted to let everybody know that he has joined us.
okay, thank you, John. So after the bid results today, we did do a slight resizing, actually resized up. We had anticipated a little bit more of a premium bid on this financing. So we're $4,425,000 as the final. If we go to page 2, sorry, I'm going to try to make this, zoom this in so you can see it. Kind of walking through the numbers, you see new bonds, $4,425,000 in the top left, the premium at $50,000. So total sources, $4,475,000. The call of the bonds and the cost of issuance coming in right at about 2%. If you we're comparing, how do we arrive at the ultimate savings levels? You can see the existing bond schedules down below. Most of the bonds on this debt schedule are out in 32 and 33. And you can see that we did a little bit of a acceleration on the debt repayment schedule, ultimately pushing bonds forward. In this case, you see 740,000 in year one, so that represents a negative savings in year one, and that's to solve within your levy constraint. So instead of doing the prepayment levy that you've done over the last couple of years, you will not have to do that resolution. We instead use the bond refinancing to accomplish that. And then ultimately you can see the savings over time, right at 630,000.
Travis, what's the levy cost if the refinance of the bonds is 2%? What's the levy cost on the project?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, but I think what you're getting at is where will the levy be?
No, what I'm trying to, you said we wouldn't have to do something because we reissued bonds, the prepayment.
Oh yeah, the prepayment levy. So you're going to save a couple $1,000s of cost on going through that process on an annual basis. So combining it with the refinance accomplishes the same thing. The goal being that you end up with the 405 debt levy in fiscal 22.
And what is all in the premium or discount on your sheet for 50,000?
The premium and or discount has to do with the way that the bonds are bid. So when in this case the investor, or sorry, the bidder is UMB Bank, and when you look at their bid, you can see there's a difference between coupon rates, which is the rate that the district will pay interest to investors, and the yields, or the return that the investor earns. So in this case, an investor who wants to buy the 2022 maturity of your bond issue, there will be a 2% coupon rate, meaning that the district pays 2%, but the investor is only going to yield 0.2. So in order for that to take place, they're going to pay you 101% of the 720,000. And the cumulative effect of these dollar prices being above 100 and then pulling out the bid from the underwriter is how you end up with the premium. So the premium is the calculation of the 720,000 times 1.96%, the 165 times 3.54%, et cetera. And that amount is what ends up being part of, whoops, I lost my document. Here we go. That is what ends up being part of this $50,000 premium that you see on that line item. Does that make sense, Jeff?
And who gets those proceeds?
You do. So instead of issuing additional bonds to cover cost of issuance, the premium covers a portion of the cost of issuance, primarily the underwriter's discount.
What would make the difference between this one at 50 and another one on one of the other bidders at 144?
That's a great question. So if we go back and look at the way that they submitted their bids, and let's take probably the most or the highest purchase price, in this case, the Raymond James bid. And you can see they're at 4% interest rates and 2% interest rates. Ultimately, when we drill into what's comprising the bids, in most of the cases, the actual investor yield is fairly similar. So if I pull up this Raymond James bid, you're going to see slightly different pricing involved. So in this case, 4% coupon, a 0.35% yield, and you get 103% dollar price, 107, 110, 113. And so then you can see these other ones down here, 2%, 102. So you can see they're paying a significantly higher premium than what you had on the UMB Bank bid. And ultimately, unless the yields end up being lower on Raymond James, versus UMB Bank, a lower coupon structure is going to be more advantageous to the district. So we typically leave that open for them to have flexibility on their bid.
Okay, thank you, Travis.
Yeah, no problem.
An easy way to think about it is if the coupon and the yield are the same, it's always 100%. It's always $100 price.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's what you had on all of your maturities, 28 and beyond, because they were callable. So it's a lot more common to see $100 bid prices on bonds that are callable.
Okay.
It's a great question. So if we go to the bond numbers, then we end up with total savings at 630,000. I think the high water mark when we were working earlier was around 550. So a little bit of an outperformance. One thing we've been seeing is a lot of movement in the treasury market. So rates have been going up in the treasury market, and I guess there's kind of a rudder, if I would say, for the municipal bond market, in that there's just a lot of cash out there. So there's a lot of buying of municipal bonds that are kind of holding yields down still, and they're not moving quite as much as the treasury market. So maybe not the lowest rate week that we've had this year, but it's certainly a very good rate week still for the district. So if we slide then to the final page, which has a lot of numbers, and so I'm going to walk through this in kind of big picture, and then I'm going to zoom in on the right side of this page. And what this page represents is the various, we'd call issuance of debt, the 11s, what's left on the 13s. You still have the June 1 payment, the 14s, the 18s, the 19s, what you've prepaid on the 14s, what you've prepaid on the 18s, and then you have the new issuance. And so if I were to kind of zoom in, and I'm going to slide it over, and we're going to lose the year reference, but what you can see is that both the last 2 years you've been at 405. So this is fiscal 21. This is fiscal 22. As you move forward, you will have opportunities to either refinance or restructure or add a prepayment levy to continue to pay off your overall debt portfolio earlier. Specifically, as we think about the debt issuance and what's callable for the district, one thing we're monitoring is this 2011 issue of the district related to the high school debt. It does become callable next June. So that becomes kind of the next refinancing target. And we'd currently see a pretty sizable refinancing value with that 2011 bond right now. So we're monitoring that. They become callable next June. So I would anticipate a pretty similar schedule to what we worked through, selling sometime in March in order to close in early or mid-April. We might even think about sliding it into February if rates continue to hold. But we are currently identifying that as a nice refinancing opportunity for the district for next year. So all that said, as you kind of look through your minimum payments, we've been talking about your bonding capacity over the last couple of years. You can see that really as we look forward, most of your future years are in that $3 range. So you certainly have about $1 per thousand that you're able to use to repay your debt. So if you want to think of it, that out of your debt payments each year, about 3/4 is going to regular payments and 1/4 is going to paying off debt early, based on your current structure. So I didn't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of pages of numbers, but here we are again. So as we kind of look at what's ahead of you tonight, I'm going to go back to the first page. You have a resolution in front of you, and that resolution has a couple different action items. The first, obviously we're working through the considering of the bids. So the first action item will be then to award the sale. The second action item then will be to call the future bonds, or call the existing bonds. So 2 motions, seconds, and roll call votes are ahead of you. But I'll answer any questions or any commentary you might have right now. Certainly, I guess I did skip over your bond rating was affirmed at the AA-, so that means no change for you guys. I think there was the possibility of seeing some upward movement. But S&P right now is in a mode of not changing ratings really until you get past the pandemic. I mean, you can get a downward movement, but it's going to be pretty hard to get an upward movement right now in the midst of the pandemic as they kind of wait to see how districts kind of flesh through any cash flow challenges. So that's a global thing that we're seeing. We're not seeing a lot of upward rate movement right now from the rating agencies.
What would the rate of benefit would have been AA?
You know, I don't know if you would have received much of a benefit. It's always possible, but the way that UMB Bank submitted their bid, I'm not sure you really would have seen much value over that. This is clearly what I would say a name play. And what that means is that, Gilbert's a good name. They're putting the bonds in a portfolio and they're allocating them to banks. I don't think it would have mattered much if they were AA minus or AA. I do think you get an advantage of being AA minus over A plus, which is probably somewhere between 0.05 or 0.1. And that 0.1 value is probably somewhere around 40 to 45,000 for you guys. But I don't think you probably would have got much bump, maybe 5 to 10,000 more of savings would be my guess.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
Thanks, Travis.
Yep.
All right, so I think the first thing we need to do is award the sale to UMB Bank, and we will do a roll call. Yes, is that correct?
Yeah, A is at 1 o'clock, the superintendent and myself and Travis opened up the bid. So we need a motion to consider and the sealed bids that were open and reviewed at 1 o'clock.
I'll move that.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Hold on, Tyler would like to vote, but I'm trying to get him unmuted. Tyler, can you just submit a vote with an email?
Or can he raise his hand?
He raised his hand.
I think he's
He's called in.
He's called in. Yeah, he's not on the.
Oh, I thought he was.
We have quorum, don't we?
Yeah. Sorry, Tyler, we can't unmute you. You want to do a roll call vote on that?
Okay,
Sure.
I think
Get him?
Tyler, can you hear us? Can you talk now?
Can you hear me?
Hey, there
Can
he
you
is.
hear me?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna do
Amazing what that star six does.
we're gonna do a roll call vote quick. On this.
Very good.
Tyler,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yep.
Don,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
and Andrew.
Yes.
And Andrew, on the next one, the 4,315,000.
Yep.
Is now 4,425,000.
4,425,000.
That changed as of Travis kind of that increased. So.
All right, next, resolution directing the sale of approximately $4,425,000 in general obligation school refunding bonds.
So moved.
So moved.
Deb,
Yeah.
Jeff, you got a second?
Yep, that's fine.
Tyler,
Aye.
Jeff.
Yep.
Don,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Ayes.
And the last is a resolution authorizing the redemption of outstanding general obligation school bonds, series 2013, dated June 1st, 2013, and directing notice be given.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Tyler can have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Aye.
Jeff.
Yep.
Don,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
and Andrew.
Aye.
All ayes.
All right, that's all we have on the agenda for tonight.
Hey, Andrew, I'd like to ask Travis another question. I don't want to bore everybody's business here, but Travis, what would it cost us if we want to move forward with those bonds that are up for call next year? Is there a penalty you pay on that? You're muted, Travis.
I see that now.
Okay.
Under current tax law, you would have to do that as a taxable debt issuance. So you would be paying taxable interest rates as opposed to tax exempt. And then on top of that, because the bonds aren't callable, you have to put the money in an escrow for a year. So essentially what that means is you're going to flush 1 year's worth of interest down the drain, which amounts to your, what I'd say is your call penalty. We can run the analysis and have that for you at your next meeting so that you can see what the taxable refunding. It will likely produce positive savings, but what we will likely do is then prepare a break even, which is essentially how much could rates rise between now and next, let's call it February, at which time you could issue the bonds and you'll wish that you waited. So we can have that analysis available for your April 12th meeting if you would like.
What is the rate on that one that is callable next year?
Yep, 1 second. Let me pull that up.
There's a reason John Nelson doesn't have any hair. It's because rates are at 1%.
Right, all of his bonds are getting called out of his portfolio.
Yep, exactly.
Good to be on the other side of the switch for a change.
Yeah.
Bear with me one moment. File's opening. So interest rates on that debt issuance are just a little bit north of 3%. So on a taxable structure, you would be moving probably more in the 2% range. So you wouldn't quite have the bang for the buck of cutting, 52% of your interest expense away, but it would produce a positive savings. But the analysis that we've looked at so far is that rates could likely go up in the neighborhood of 0.8%, to just ballpark a number. But certainly we'll run the analysis and get that to you at your next meeting for consideration.
And
Thanks, Travis, for all your help.
Yep.
That'd be across the yield curve, Travis, or when you say that, are you looking at kind of the average maturity? So we'd be thinking the 7-year-ish or 6?
Yeah, I'm looking at you'd probably be in the neighborhood of a 190-ish right now. And again, I'm ballparking, so maybe I shouldn't ballpark stuff and just run the numbers.
Gives me kind of an idea how far away a 190-ish on the 10-year or on the.
Yeah, the other thing we're running into is the taxable market isn't as competitive right now versus the tax exempt. So that's hurting us a little bit. But I'll get a scale from our underwriting desk and have that for you.
Okay, no, good information.
Yeah, we've taken the approach most of the time that the issuing taxable debt. The other thing we've been waiting for is there's been rumors of some reform on this, that these are what would normally be called an advance refunding, which we could do back in 2017. The Tax Reform Act that was put in place by the prior administration eliminated tax exempt advance refundings. So if those were to be brought back, you could complete those this fall. So we have a stable of issues that we kind of have on a short list that if we end up getting tax reform, they may move forward this calendar year, and yours is one of them.
Thanks, Travis. Anything else before we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thanks, Tyler.
A second?
Second.
Debbie did, but she's muted.
I know. I got a little excited there about that. Sorry.
All those in favor to adjourn the meeting?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you much. Meeting adjourned. Have a